How's it going?
Hey, Matthew, very well. How are you doing?
I'm great. You can hear and see me. Everything's good.
What? No, no, I hear you. I hear you. All good. What about you?
No, it's dynamite. It's dynamite. It's great.
All right, wonderful. So, thank you very much, first of all, for your time.
Oh my God, thanks for having me.
Sure. So, you're shooting right now?
Yeah. I'm in northern Canada right now in a place called North Bay shooting this. It's kind of like it's an independent feature and it's kind of like an action dystopian movie. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah.
That's so cool. So, you're pretty busy because you just completed Hell of a Summer, right?
Yes. Wow. Way to know the resume. Yeah, that finished, and then like a week or two later, I was on the road and shooting this one. Yeah.
So cool, man. Um, I thought because your movie actually, Orphan First Kill, is gonna will be released in 2 days in Germany.
Oh,
So
sick.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's gonna be an exclusive theatrical release, so it's not digital, and it's gonna be wide as well. So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have very high hopes here. Um,
Love that.
Obviously, I mean, we have to say that uh it's very fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, it's even better reviewed than the first one, we have to say, and it's
Ooh. Okay.
and it's also fresh not only with the critics but also with the audience, which because sometimes even they disagree, but here it's like both parties are like,
I
yes,
love that. That was one of the things. Like I'm a big fan of the original. I remember
yeah,
going to see it in theaters. It's right up there with some of my favorite horror. And yeah, the fans for Orphan are serious. It's almost like a cult following a little bit. So I knew that they would let us know if we didn't do a good job. So I'm relieved to hear that it's got a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've heard some people who were, when the trailer came out, they were like, oh, is this going to be like copy paste of the original? But
And
it's
now,
actually, while most trailers of movies actually spoil the entire plot, this one really tries to hide like the real story in a way. It's like it's like the way you had to make this trailer in order to make sure that it's not everything that gets revealed in there.
oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's Orphan. You know there's going to be a twist, and you know you're not going to see it coming. And it's going to be something that really, in my mind, justifies why it was made because there was a lot of, I wouldn't call it controversy, but a little bit of confusion as to why 13 years later do you make a movie about someone who is stuck in their infancy, at least in the exterior. So yeah, there was a lot of like skepticism about why is it being made and can it be pulled off. But I challenge audiences to go watch it, see it for themselves, and let us know if they agree, because I do think that the twist makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely. I've seen it yesterday, so and I totally agree. Seriously, I was very, very pleased with the movie. And I'm not saying it just because I'm talking to you, I really mean it.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I'm really pleased. I'm glad. Thank you.
So, and there are a lot of topics in the movie that I would like to discuss with you.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, when your character gets introduced, we see him fencing. And I was
Mhm.
wondering because whenever you play a character, you pretend to have the hobby that might not be the hobby in your life. But I was
Yeah.
wondering, whenever you play a character, do you remember, like, a specific hobby from a character you played that never was your hobby, but because you did the movie, it kind of became your hobby as well?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Um, I don't know if I've ever adopted a hobby from a character that I've done. More so, you adopt kind of the characteristics. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing a
Oh,
sort of a duplicitous character, or someone who tends to kind of be a bit more brazen in their approach to life, you might take that on a bit more, or I don't know, like wear darker colors or more, like dress kind of
yeah.
like them. But yeah, funny enough, Gunner was actually originally written as a rower, like a champion rower, but we shot
Oh,
it in Winnipeg in the winter, and there was no water to be found. Everything was frozen over. So then the director was like, "We're going to change him to be a fencer," and I think you can do that. And so the day that we did the fencing, it was insane because I knew that I was going to have body doubles. Um,
yeah.
And luckily, I had this little intuition that was like, you should watch some fencing. So for the month leading up, I was watching all of these fencers online, would watch Olympic matches, and I had done stage combat, so I knew roughly how to hold the sword and everything and all do that. But then when we
Yeah.
got to the actual day, they were like, "Okay, Matthew, we're gonna throw you in," and I was like, uh, okay. So then I went to my body double and I was like, can you show me everything that you just did, please? And I have a little bit of dance training, so it was kind of like choreography to me. But yeah, then we went in and we did it. And a lot of what they used is me, and I'm very proud of that we were able to pull it off. But in terms of adopting a hobby, I don't know. I tend to adopt maybe the intensity. Like I really like long distance running. So seeing that Gunnar has a scholarship to go to Yale to be a fencer, I kind of took that intensity into my own and was like, okay, I'm gonna run a lot and really get into this. And then just before we shot, I did my first half marathon and just was like really trying to get into that athlete mentality because it's similar to an actor, but it is a little bit different. So I'd say there's that. Yeah, I took the competitive edge that Gunnar has and adopted that to things I was already doing.
Right, all right. And I felt a little bit sorry for Alan, when after Gundar's achievement, he wanted to celebrate with him at home, and then he wanted to have like this family evening, and obviously your character goes like, well, I have something going on with my friends, because obviously
Exactly.
he's becoming a young adult, and probably spending too much time with the parents doesn't seem too cool at that age.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was wondering, whenever you hear a yes, whenever you get a part in a movie or in a TV show, how do you usually like to celebrate that achievement?
You know, normally I do a little silent dance party in my bedroom. That's like
Oh,
number
right.
one. I
That's
hear it and I'm
great.
like,
Yeah.
yes. Um, and then I will call my parents and it's like a good little, hey, guess what? There's another one on the docket. But it's a tricky thing because in this business, they call it getting left on the editing room floor. You never actually know until you see the final cut how big your part's going to be, if the things you did that you really liked are the things that make it into the final edit. So I always say exercise caution when you find out that you've got the part, because it's not until you're on set or you're at the movie premiere that you know that you're actually in it. Yeah, I mean, it's happened to me before. Actually, the very first thing I ever booked, it was this commercial for, I think it was a student loan company. I can't even remember, but I was so excited. I told everybody, and then I got a call from my agent a couple weeks later, and they were like, "Matt, I'm so sorry. You've been cut out of the commercial." And I was like,
No.
no. And I could handle the fact that I'd been cut out, but I couldn't handle the fact that I had told everybody that I was going
All
to be
right.
in it. And I was so embarrassed. So now I kind of, when I find out about something, I keep the group of people that I tell quite small, just because you never know. You never know. Yeah.
Right, but it's so mean when you're celebrating your achievement and then it's going to be in a different direction. That's so mean.
I know. I know. Hey, the industry is not for the faint of heart. So we face rejection a lot as creative individuals. And so yeah, it's a occupational hazard is what I call it.
Right. I mean, and the people who are only watching movies, they don't know what happens behind the scenes and how long the journeys actually are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's quite strenuous sometimes.
Yeah. And there's like a conversation in the movie happening where your character goes like, when Esther says that she's passionate about painting, he goes
Yeah.
like, well, 4 years ago you didn't really paint that way or whatever, and
Yeah.
um, and then obviously the mother tells you, well, it's development, like look where you were 4 years ago and where you are now with your fencing. So I was wondering, because 4 years ago you started off with a short called The Tiny House, and I was
Yeah.
wondering, because between that and Orphan, you did a lot of other projects already. So I was wondering, how would you describe your personal development in acting in the past 4 years?
Great question. It's funny because yeah, so Tiny House was a student film it was one of the very first times I was acting in front of the camera, aside from like the odd commercial that I had done.
Yeah.
And previous to that, I did a lot of theater. That's, I actually trained. I thought that Broadway was going to be my trajectory. That's really where I wanted to go.
Hmm.
And then I sort of had this realization with myself that what made me really excited to be an actor as a kid was the stuff like Harry Potter and watching these kids that were the same age as me in these fantastical universes. Um, and that's when I kind of was like, I think I should switch my gears to really focus on film and television. And so from Tiny House to Orphan, that's
Hmm.
really what I did. And it's hard when you're starting out and you're not a name, nobody knows your
Yeah.
reputation and
Yeah.
your canon of work is really small. So it's hard to say no to some projects, but that I did have to do that. There were times with theater where I would go, I love the project, I love the people, but I think I'm going to say no to this because I want to keep auditioning for film and television. And lucky enough, it did sort of pay off in a way because, yeah, you get into those rooms. And I always say that when you're auditioning for something, you're not just auditioning for that one project, you're auditioning for that casting house. And so if you nail that audition, there's no guarantee that you're the guy who's going to end up playing that role, but there's a pretty good chance that they'll bring you back in for another audition for a part that you may be even more closer to.
Hmm.
So between Tiny House and Orphan, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning so much. But just getting more comfortable on a set and learning the eye lines and the different things because it's the same skill set, but it's kind of like using your tools a little bit differently. And yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint when you're doing a
Yeah.
movie. And yeah, so just honestly, yeah, that line is really true in the film where she's like, think about where you were 4 years ago. I think about that all the time because
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, as a young kid, this is the stuff that I would have loved to be doing. And so I am so grateful that the universe has put me on a trajectory to be able to achieve those types of things.
Yeah. No, but it's so great that you were also able to say no, because I can imagine that so many people say yes to everything because they feel like that, oh, the next yes, if I pass on this opportunity, the next yes might even take another year or another 2 years, or maybe it will never arrive. You just don't know. And
Exactly. And I can tell you it did. It did. It's like, when these projects come out, it makes it seem like, you've been working all the time, but there have been periods of 6 months or so where I haven't been employed from acting. And so I go and I get a little Joe job. And then you got to make the bills. So you do that. But ultimately, I would say you can't lose faith in yourself because you have to be your biggest champion. Um, because there's always another person lining up to do the role instead of you. So if you don't believe in yourself, how is anybody else going to believe in you?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there are also like important lines in the movie, or lines that have a deeper meaning that come from Ellen, which is a character that I really loved.
Yeah.
One will be like, when he was painting with Esther, he was like, well, I love again what I do, and I feel like a kid again. And I was wondering, making movies, being on set, what would you say is it that makes you feel the most like a child again?
Oh man, like all of the above. Because like when you're like children are such fantastic actors because they have the ability to just surrender to the scenario and whatever is going on. So, as adults, I think we often get in our own way and we think about things like, how does my hair look? What are people going to
Yeah.
think? Oh my God, how is this going to be edited? And what will the internet say about all of this? Kids don't really have that frame of reference. Maybe they do now more with social media being available, but at least when I was a young boy, there wasn't really as much of that prevalent.
Mhm.
So it's when you get to work with powerhouse people like Julia Stiles, like Isabel Furman and Ross of Sutherland,
Right.
and you just get to set and you all agree that these stakes are real and you are creating a universe together and it's just like magic. It just sizzles. It's like when bacon's on the pan and you smell it and you're like, this is
Yeah.
delicious. When you're in a scene, the exact same way and you just feel it. There's like an energy that's palpable. And so I think that excitement is when I feel most like my inner child is controlling what's happening. And yeah, he freaking loves it.
So cool, man. So cool. And another line from Ellen was like, every artist needs a space to let their inner weirdo out.
Yeah.
What would you
Yeah.
say is that space for you as an artist?
I think it's when I'm with my friends. And I'm not necessarily, I mean, so it can happen on a contract because, when you're working so closely with other people, you get to know them really, really well. And so it can be
Yeah.
in your trailer, it can be on the car ride home. But when I'm not on a contract and I'm just hanging with my friends, that's normally when I feel like I get to recharge and connect again with who I am. Because you can get lost in a role sometimes, and when you finally finish your last day of shooting, you're like, oh, okay, now I go back to my life and my reality. And yeah, when I'm with the people that I love, that is normally when I let my inner weirdo out. And I do let my inner weirdo out. That, or like, you know what I mean? If we're
Yeah.
going clubbing on a Saturday night, that's when the weirdo comes out, and you just have fun. Yeah.
No, but I can imagine that that it can be tricky to go back from filming to like normal life, because it depends on the project, but you have like so many working hours, right, when you're shooting, and then all of a sudden it's like from like 16 hours a day or whatever to zero. Like it's can be like a
Totally.
change, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I say it's a marathon and not a sprint when you're making a
Yeah.
movie, because you really have to pace your energy and keep it up and go for a long, long time, and you can hit that wall where you're like, what are we doing? What are we making? I don't know if I can do this another day. And then obviously you show up on set and you're like, I love this. This is awesome. And then it stops and it's all over, and you may get lucky enough to work with these people again, or you may not. You never really know. That's the crazy thing about this industry. And it's I'd say the hardest thing sometimes about being an actor is not showing up on set and doing the job. That's really fun and you have so much support. Sometimes the hardest thing is, what do you do between the contracts and between the
Yeah.
gigs? How do
Yeah.
you keep yourself you mentally sound,
Mhm.
physically fit, and emotionally well? That's kind of the labor intensive part of the job, because everybody is different. So there's no one strategy that's going to be perfect for you. You kind of have to find your own strategy. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because I have friends who like don't know how long it takes to shoot a movie. When I say, well, this movie they shot it like 4 weeks, and they were like, what, 4 weeks? And then sometimes I'm like, well, there are movies they shoot for like 3 months or even a year. So
Exactly.
sometimes they see a movie and they go like, well, this feels like it could have come out like 2 years ago. And then I'm like, yeah, well, they were starting on it like 3 years ago. It just took
Exactly.
all that time to finish it. And they have like they don't have an understanding for how much time it takes. It's like it's so fascinating to have like discussions with friends who are not familiar with what's going on behind the scenes when making movies.
Well, yeah, no, that's my family. They love it. I love telling them all the little details and everything. And yeah, you can shoot a movie in as little as 3 weeks. You can shoot it in 2 weeks, maybe, if depending on how big the cast is and your number of locations. But something like Orphan, it took us just over 2 months to make, and we did it
Wow.
almost 2 years ago. So like it is crazy. It does take a lot of time to get it all together, to string it, and then not to mention the different edits that you have. Like you can get a
Yeah.
rough cut together about a month after you're done shooting, because you
Mm.
see what are called the dailies. After every day you shoot, you can sort of review the footage you made, give it to an editor, and they can kind of really roughly put it in. But then when you're going to add color correction, sound correction, special effects, ADR. So that's when you're doing the audio after, like all of that takes so much time. And
Mm.
then there's also analytics that I have no idea about what is the best time to release your film given the audience and competition from other films. So it is a huge working puzzle that takes so much time. People are always like, when is Orphan coming out? And I was like,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know. I don't know. It's gonna come out, but I don't know when. So I'm really pleased that Germany is getting it soon and the world has been able to
Yeah.
watch it.
Absolutely. No, it's really because sometimes you see like the studios like switching release dates. They're going like, okay, let's release this one first and then the other one later. And people are sometimes can already be like, oh no, does that mean the movie isn't complete or what's going on? But the reality is only, well, this movie probably fits better in this month, while the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
one might fit in better, I don't know, during Halloween or whatever.
1,000%, 1,000, and that's with the guys who, they study all the analytics. They know the answers to that, but we're just the actors. We just play the parts, and then we hand it over.
Right. Right. And then you just wait yourself as well for the movie to come out.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so another line from Ellen was, we can see beauty and passion in what people don't even look at, um,
Mhm.
which was really nice, because it kind of reminded me of, when I watch movies with friends, um, very often I see things they don't necessarily see, because they are,
Yeah.
they are just watching movies, maybe once a month or whatever. So I was wondering, you as an artist, because you're on set, you know how movies get made, and so I was wondering, do you can you say something specific that you might appreciate even more about the movie you're watching? Something that maybe friends of yours who are not working in the business might not see the way you see it?
Well, I think fortunately, a lot of my friends are actors, so it may not be
All right.
necessarily my friends that
Yeah.
don't pick up on it, but if I'm watching it maybe with my parents or something, something that sticks out to me, and this may not even necessarily be what you're thinking of, but ADR, so when lines get
Mhm.
added in after the fact,
Yeah.
it if that's done beautifully, that makes my heart sing. I'm like, oh, I
Uh,
know that line. I know that line was added in after they recorded it at a different point, but to sew that into me is so impressive. And then of course there's the coloring of a movie. If Because it kind of sets the tone. It's almost like an Instagram filter or something you're going to use. But when you decide the general aesthetic, um, I think that's really powerful and is almost like another voice on a film. But maybe above all is when you see a beautiful single shot. So
mhm.
something that hasn't been cut, and I will often go back and rewind to go, was there a cutting point? Did somebody walk across the screen? Was there a moment where they did something really clever that I didn't catch?
Yeah.
And if I can't figure it out and it does look like a single shot, I'm like, bravo, bravo, because those take a lot of time, and it's a
Right.
coming together of like the acting, the set, the cinematography, everybody working to make that single shot be just what it is. And that's something that's really impressive to me and stands out. And I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. That's just beautiful. And maybe that's coming from theater a little bit more
Mhm.
too, because like what is a play but a single take that goes on for an hour and a half? So to see it come across in cinema is really exciting, I think. So that's probably something that I like to pick up on.
Oh, awesome, man. So cool. And I also remember a line from Julia's character who goes like, "Let's give them the story they want." Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and that one also kind of reminded me of Hollywood, and that sometimes actors even have to play parts off screen as well, just to
Hmm.
make sure they might come across the way they want to come across, or how other people want them to come across. And I was wondering, you as an artist, how do you make sure you stay you, no matter if people like it or not?
I that's something I'm still learning and still coming up against, I
Mhm.
think, because playing some of these roles that are really dark and perhaps disturbed in other people's opinion, that is not who I am,
Yeah.
contrary to what maybe people will think. So yeah, I find you have to have a really solid sense of self to know what parts of you align with the character and what parts don't. And that's where the acting comes in. But yeah, in terms of a public persona, like I think I'm still discovering what that is for the world, and then
Yeah.
what does the world really like from me, and what do I like that they like, and what are the qualities that I wish they saw. Fortunately, some of the projects that haven't come out yet that are going to show a completely different side of Matthew Finlan, and I really hope I hope it surprises some people to know that there's the versatility in there to, I
Yeah.
just shot this project called Hell of a Summer. That's this awesome, awesome horror comedy. And the character I get to play in that is a bit of a comic relief. He's a bit more slapstick and very funny. And so to enter the world of comedy is so cool. And it's hard to do on screen, but it's vastly different than a horror like Orphan. And so to have two movies exist in the same genre, but play completely different roles, I think it's going to be exciting to see how the public uh, embraces me in a character like that, But I do think that both of those roles exist inside me. It's just a matter of knowing what you want to share, and then also like being able to take somebody else's opinion and go, thank you for that, but I'm going to throw that out of my head.
Yeah.
Everybody's in their opinion, but I don't necessarily have to think about it before I'm going to sleep at night. I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes they will keep me awake, but yeah, again, going back to that strong sense of self and just knowing that you have to be satisfied with your work before anybody else is. And if that's the case, then you're golden, you know?
Right. And speaking of Hell of a Summer, because whenever Finn talked about it in the past, he's so passionate about that project. So in your words, what would you say is it that makes the movie a hell of a summer?
You know, oh man,
Obviously, without pissing Finn off by revealing something that he doesn't want
yeah,
to
no. I'm not going to
know.
say too much, but what I will say is that Finn and Billy, the writers and directors, and they also are in the cast as well. They star in it.
Yeah.
They did a really, really good job of assembling an ensemble that loved each other off screen and on screen. And I think that audiences will feel that authentic relationship between everybody. And that was just so cool. That was the first ensemble comedy I had been part of. And yeah, it's just awesome when you get to be on screen and you're acting like you're best friends with these people and you've been
Yeah.
coming to camp for a while, and then you get to go home and you're chilling with them, until 5, 6
Nice.
a.m., sometimes even later. It's
Wow.
yeah, they did a really, really good job of casting that piece. And so I think that's what's going to speak volumes to these people and create the idea that this camp is real, and that these people do know each other for a lifetime, because it felt like that. They're some of my dearest friends now. I love them. I miss them all.
Oh, so amazing. Awesome. But because Finn is only 19 years old, but watching him directing the movie, did that kind of make you feel like, oh wow, actually it would be cool to do that myself one day as well? Or were you more like, wow, dude, this looks so stressful?
They made it look easy, and I'd be
Wow.
lying if I said like I would love to get into directing. I think directing is the combination of having a strong opinion and knowing how to execute it, and that comes from sort of working in the world of film and television and developing a taste that you have. And both Finn and Billy knew exactly what they wanted, and they did a really, really good job of achieving that. And it's interesting acting with your director. So, you'll be doing a take with them and then they'll come over and they'll be like, yeah, that was great. Let's try it a little bit more like this, or let's do a bit like that. Um, and then they jump right back into the scene and you're looking at them and you're kind of like, while you're acting, you want to telepathically be like, is this what you wanted? More like this? Like, I don't really know. Um, but they were fantastic. And yeah, I would love to get into directing. I shot this vampire show that's coming out October 1st on OTV. It's
Oh,
called Ezra.
Ezra. Yeah.
And when we were making that, I kept suggesting plot points, or I'd be like, so what are we doing? What are we doing for season 2? Or what are we thinking? And then it eventually led to them being like, I think we might go with one of your ideas. And I was like, great. Can I come into the writer's room? And they were like, of course. So I'm
What?
I'm
Yeah.
proud to announce that I will be in the writer's room for season 2. And I hope that it's a short hop from writer to director, perhaps. Because yeah, I love working in film. That taking on other roles other than the actor, I think could be really exciting too.
That's so cool, man. Seriously. And I will be very excited to see what you're doing whenever you do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll let you know. I'll let you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
I'll be
Let us
like
know.
directorial debut right there. Yeah.
Matthew, before we wrap up, I would like to enter spoiler territory. So everyone who's listening,
Yeah,
if you haven't seen it, leave now.
exactly. Yeah. Mute and turn it off. Yeah.
And come back when you've seen it. Yeah. No, because this, I feel like this movie was so, I mean, it's not a question, but I just want to tell you what I liked so much about it, because it is so unexpected. And the thing is that it's weird. At first you feel sorry for the family. You go like, oh no, that they have their daughter back, and they don't know yet that it's not her, and you feel like, oh no, they have her, and it's not her. And then like the twist, who changes like everything, and it's so interesting, because at first you are rooting for the family, of course, because you go like, yeah, evil is in your house, so you have to get rid of it. And then there's the twist, and all of a sudden you're like, damn, who am I going to root for now? Because now you have evil versus evil, and you're like, what is more evil? And it felt like, well, I've seen like some, well, not necessarily good things in Isabel's character, but like you see that she kind of suffers from life.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that and realize that, and you see that she actually has hopes for, you know, like a better life and for a romance herself or whatever. But when it comes down like to your character and Julia's character, you're like, they are like pure evil, like, you know, they're like so self-centered, like they're like so, they are like, it feels like they are like,
yeah,
in the your dialogue, like, people like me matter, that says it all. Like,
I know. And as because I obviously, you know, the trajectory of your character when you're starting to build it even from the beginning. And as someone who, like I said, was a huge fan of the original Orphan, when building Gunner, I just was like, I want to make a character that people are so excited to see Esther take down. And I really, that was at the forefront of my mind. Like, how can I make him as such an asshole, so entitled and privileged, and sort of represent everything that's maybe wrong with the world right now. So I'm really glad that came across, because that was the intention. I was like, I want, when this guy meets his end, people to be like, yes. And then how do you make an audience feel sorry for a little psychopath? Like, literally, for Esther, she's a horrible, horrible person on paper, but then when you watch her, you do kind of go like, "Oh, I can't believe she has to endure this." So we had to be the level of suffering that made everything that follows, including the original movie, make sense. So that was a really fun challenge, to be like, yeah, how do you take this this family that appears perfect and they've suffered a loss, and then completely flip it 180 to make Esther's story now be what people are cheering for.
Right, and it also speaks for the writing, because writing that and making it believable isn't like an easy task.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I mean, you get Julia Stiles to say any piece of dialogue, and she's so grounded and so rooted that she can sell anything. It's incredible. Working with her was just come true. Yeah.
So awesome. Seriously, Matthew, thank you so much for your time today. Seriously, it was such a blast talking to you. And I cannot wait to see Hell of a Summer and everything else you're doing. All the best for your current projects and everything you that is coming beyond that.
Thank you. It was my pleasure joining today. And any other time you want to hop on and chat, let's do it. This was such an absolute pleasure. Thank you, man.
Oh, awesome, Matthew. We'll definitely check back with you.
Fantastic. I'll be waiting.
All right, great.
Thanks, man.